it's gotta be. It's always been that way. The dark side of the moon. The dark side.
Heavy, huh? Here you go.
I love you, I wanna pass it on, I wanna give and give till it's all gone. I wanna know you while we have the time, 'cause that's all I got to leave behind.
Is because the purple color that's in the grape goes into the juice and into ultimate.
See here? They put like grapes there and then they added yeast.
And it will squeeze the juice out using this thing to crank it down.
They made other into wine.
Yeah. Flashy. Better.
I wanna tell you a story the only way that I can. I'm just replay sentiment that came before me. And one day the world is gonna see another man replacing me. That's just the way it's gotta be. It's always been that way. The dark side of the moon. The dark side.
Heavy, huh? Here you go.
I love you, I wanna pass it on, I wanna give and give till it's all gone. I wanna know you while we have the time, 'cause that's all I got to leave behind.
Is because the purple color that's in the grape goes into the juice and into ultimate.
See here? They put like grapes.
Hello, everybody. Kevin Luther and Jerome Luther here from Voluptuary and Lucid Wines for our weekly virtual tasting here, and we today's theme is Trivia Night. So yeah, we're going to be tasting through 5 Voluptuary and Lucid wines and doing some wine-related trivia that we've made up. Our last trivia night was a huge success. People were really into it. It was probably one of our more popular comment-laden nights, so we decided to bring it back. And the only problem with last trivia night was I made the questions a little too hard.
Yeah, so I may have the questions this time. So it's kind of like, when you watch like Jeopardy and you're like, how do any of these people know any of these things, And then you get to watch Wheel of Fortune after and you're like, ugh. So we're going to swap it around a little bit and hope you enjoy.
Drums, the Wheel of Fortune, I like it. So we've got a fun lineup. It is, we have 2 different skin contact style wines. So in the world of natural wine, these are often called orange wines. And then the first one is going to be more of a light skin contact style wine. The second one is a fully orange wine. And then we have 3 fairly heavy reds. So we're going into a Syrah, a Cabernet Sauvignon, and a red blend that are going to be, pretty dark and spicy styles. So we'll be talking about those while we do the wine trivia. And before we dive into the wines here, basically the way the trivia is going to work is we will ask the questions on air, and then you guys can put your answers in the comments section. And if you have any questions or need clarifications, or if you guys are like, whoa, that question's still way too hard and you need some hints, definitely let us know. Put that in the comments too, and we can give some hints, or break it down to multiple choice if it's too challenging still. That's basically the gist of it. We ask the questions, you put them in the comments, and this is a honor system that you're not Googling everything. And then at the end of it all, you guys get to get prizes depending on how many you got. So, yeah, so you want to plan? It always does that.
Okay.
So
do I.
So hopefully everything's working. Let us know in the comments section if you guys are hearing us and seeing us well. I'll double check the stream right here now that I've done my little intro. And Jerome's talking
And I'll
about
do
the
a little
kits.
intro of this as well. For those of you not doing this before, this is our virtual wine tasting. We're going through a fleet of 5 of the wines and tasting over them and then just kind of reviewing details of them, how they pair with your life or with foods, and then doing the trivia as well. So you've got some version of this kit and some other options we'll show you later. And the way it works is that it matches up with the paperwork that you have as well. And if you don't have the physical paper, you can just get it from the website, and you can use that to taste along. They'll be in the same order, and they're labeled as well. So you can use this for writing notes or keeping track of what we're talking about if we get off base. So I'm going to be drinking out of those today as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerome. All right, cool. So, yeah, looks like the stream is working there. And
I panic every
Facebook.
time.
Yeah, it does this thing where the Facebook live manager shows a frozen screen and says we're having trouble loading your video, which is a great way to freak out business managers who barely know how to live stream. And then it's actually working. It just says that every single time, and it's just some bug in their live system that they haven't figured out yet. But or I haven't figured out. Go figure. Anyways, this whole live thing is interesting new technology that challenges our ability to innovate and continue adapting. So it's been fun.
On that note, should we segue over to what you have adapted to and
absolutely.
mastered and start pouring our wine?
I'll point out that with the new camera position, you're off camera right now. So we'll have to hover a little closer today. The mask, our 6-foot distance here. So the first wine that you guys have in your glass is going to be the L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay blend. So this is based in Chardonnay, but has a little bit of Malvasia Bianca. So the Malvasia Bianca brings in a little bit more of the tropical fruit floral notes to the Chardonnay's more base orchard fruit characteristics. So while you sip on that, let's go ahead and have our first trivia question, I think. So, we'll tell you more about the wine, but we got 8 trivia questions and 5 wines, so we'll kind of double them up a little bit and you guys roll on your first trivia question.
Do you want to do the?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll do the first one here. So the first question is, what has more alcohol? A regular can of 5% alcohol beer, a can of beer, like a 5% alcohol beer, a standard glass of 5 ounces of 12% alcohol wine, or 1.5 ounces, a shot, of 80 proof liquor, standard liquor, or none of the above. So what are you guys' answers to that one? Shot of liquor, glass of wine, or a can of beer? What has more alcohol? There we go.
Good
All right.
question.
I'll let you guys work on that one. So while we're doing that, this first wine, as I said, is our L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay. You guys are really lucky today. This is the last of this wine. It's literally sold out. Like, we don't have a single bottle in this place, I don't believe, at this point.
We have one
one
bottle
bottle.
that has been purchased and is owned by somebody, so we
Yeah.
can't sell that under him. And then I literally
Had enough to pour us a taste to taste with you all. So,
now we're out.
right? And so this wine has been really popular. It's our lucid white, and it has been our overall most popular white. I think it's because it's nice. It has this balance of like a fresh, crisp citrus fruit, but it also has this tropical orchard floral fruit note that brings in this almost sweet characteristic. So you have like a crispness and a riper fruit together in one wine. So it's both, almost seems like it would be sweet, but then it's more crisp and refreshing, especially on the palate with the citrus.
What woods is this one aged on?
This one is aged on oak, but a little bit of lemon wood as well. So one of the things I do in my winemaking that most winemakers don't do, in fact, I don't really know anyone in the U.S. that does this, is use other woods in pretty notable amounts. So it was fermented on the skins initially. That's why the skin contact name, but fermented as whole berries. And those whole berries aren't as intensely extractive into the wine as crushed skins would. It's a gentler extraction. So amongst orange wines, a whole berry orange wine is going to be the lightest style. So this one was whole berry, so it's a lighter orange wine. And then I aged it in neutral oak barrels, so not much oak influence, a little bit of oak flavor, but not tons. that neutral meaning, used, so they don't have a big flavor, but then I put a little bit of lemon wood in them to enhance that citrusy characteristic. So, interesting, quirky experimentation.
I think that lends it a little bit of a citrus note in and of itself, and whites, often do already, but I can see this as a very good pairing with seafood, citrus, things you'd eat down by the ocean side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, strong characteristic of those aspects, that kind of citrusy note, and definitely pairs well with those more seafood, citrus-style dishes. It can also go nice with like white sauce pastas and kind of that creamier stuff as a counterpoint that cuts through the richness of the sauce to create a clearing of the palate that allows you to take your next bite. So I'm just going to check in real quick and see if we have any questions or comments yet. And nothing too much yet. So feel free to throw out anything you guys do have. And just double checking on something. We got one comment from someone having trouble finding the feed. So I'm going to take a moment and make sure that we have everything.
That's properly. Actually why I'm kind of clinking around over here myself. I mean, and I'm not the best guy on the internet anyway, old before my time, but I was having a hard time finding it there.
Yeah, it's showing up on my computer here, but
I went to the Facebook page and then went to live and found it there, but I wasn't seeing the link in my notification.
Yeah, I think we may have had a minor issue because Facebook updated their business page thing and the original link went down. So I created a new live link and relinked to the website. But if you guys checked out the link earlier, then you would have had the old link. Unfortunately, they refreshed their whole system and didn't notify anyone. So frustrating thing about updates from companies, right? But I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is posted on our page. I'm going to post this new live link. So those of you who are already with us and do have a link, thank you for bearing with us.
I'll take this opportunity then while are you done with that already? Okay, I was going to jump in and make a...
posted on our page. What were you going to take the opportunity for?
I was going to say another quiz question.
Oh, well, before we go to the next quiz question, all right.
I'll take this opportunity then while...
So, there we go. It's feeding. Okay, cool. We do have some comments and responses here. So, they are all the same as our first guest from Kaylee Polly, and says the first wine was amazing. Super excited to purchase it. So thank you, Kaylee. Yeah, that is unfortunately sold out. But our new vintage is coming out very soon. The new vintage of L1 is going to be similar but different and will be released actually for next week's live virtual tasting of all of our new release wines.
It's the good and bad of being such a small winery with such small production sizes. Everything is very custom and you get these cool, quirky, unique wines, but they run out fast and, we're off and on to the next thing, and rather than just recreating them all the same.
Yeah. So exactly. The new vintage is going to be less citrusy and a little more oak driven in its flavor profile. So you're definitely going to notice a slightly different style. Okay, cool.
Is your new one, is it skin contact as well?
Because... Yeah, so the new one is skin contact, but it was aged on a higher percentage of oak. And instead of the lemon wood, I went a different direction with it. To make it a little more ripe and citrusy, a little more ripe and like fleshed out, I aged it on apple wood and pear wood.
Okay, so it'll have even more of those orchard fruit aromatics. And so I was just asking that because some people are interested in it and it's sold out. And I know, next vintage is going to be an entirely different varietal, but it's still going to be that same skin contact style. So it's a white that drinks like a red. It's done in that method. And I know that's why I like your whites. So this new one will be the same.
Yeah, it will be the same, but definitely a little richer style. So cool. I'm seeing that lots of people are on the YouTube channel and commenting that everything's working, the feed's working, and there's some guesses. The wine, Monica says, a shot is stronger, Joss says, and Michael says none of the above. So anyone who said none of the above, or, if you, that was kind of multiple choice I made it, but if you just said like they're the same, That is correct. These are what the government calls a standard drink.
So you could no, it's not true.
Right? It's the lizards telling us this, and what do they know about alcohol? They can't even process it.
I didn't know that lizards can't process alcohol.
I just totally made that up, actually.
Yeah, that's actually a quiz question.
Yeah.
We're phrasing it Jeopardy style.
Yeah. So, but the trick is that if you do the math behind it, you'll realize that the volume times the percentage adds up to the same amount of alcohol. They call it a standard drink, and this is actually how they kind of provide the basis for like blood alcohol content levels and saying like you can have 2 standard drinks or 3 standard drinks or whatever before you're over the limit based on a certain number of hours, is because there is a standard alcohol content in these. As you increase the percentage of alcohol, you decrease the volume to create that standard drink.
Yeah, it matches up to the lines on your red Solo cup as well.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Volumes.
Yeah.
One of those things most people don't know. Yeah, literally. That's what those lines are for. So if you want to play vodka pong, just first line. Wine pong, second one. Beer pong. Cool. So this wine, in addition to all those flavors we talked about, and we're talking a little bit about the new vintage, I have some other pairings, life pairings and music pairings. Before I dive too much into those, let's do that next trivia question since we finished that first one.
Yeah, I changed tabs here, so that'll be like 2 or 3 minutes for me. No, I got it. So, in vino veritas is a Latin phrase that translates as "in wine there is truth." What was the intended meaning of that phrase when it was coined? That making wine out of grapes is the truest expression of the grapes? That wine is the only thing true left in this crazy world? Or that drunk people will tell you all their secrets like they're getting drunk on truth serum? So, is it time to announce the answer for the... Oh, I guess you did it.
Oh, I did, yeah. But okay, so I really liked his questions. All my questions are so factual, but his trivia questions are just, yeah.
They're just long game jokes. There is actually some knowledge involved, but I'm just like working my way through like a punt, you know.
Yeah, I love that. So that's why we have Jerome on the show. Yeah, I'm like the too serious wine geeky guy, and he breaks me from ranting too much about wine with good dad jokes and puns. So, so yeah, we were getting some really good comments on that first wine. People were really digging that first wine. Kind of bummed we're sold out, but like I said, I think you'll dig the next one if you liked this one. Definitely a similar style. And okay, cool. So for this first wine, the food pairings we talked about a little bit. The life pairing for this is spring or summertime, hanging out with your friends, hanging out by the pool or lake, rafting down the river or in the lake, and maybe you each want your own inner tube so you can stay 6 feet apart, or just relaxing by yourself like a hot summer evening, you know, cooling down at the end of the day. That's this wine's vibe for me.
Self-care. I see exactly the same
yeah.
thing. You know, it's either like a nice like self-care, like night in, you know, treating yourself type of wine, you know, like drink it in the bathtub, or a very like hot weather outdoor, you know, enjoy the summertime on the coast type of wine.
Bathtub wine. I dig that. Get like one of those bath bombs. I discovered those things recently. They're actually pretty cool. So, all right. And then the music pairing for this is I'm Alive by Michael Franti. This being kind of an energetic summer wine. That's an energetic, summery, uplifting song. And then my literary pairing is from Paulo Coelho, that in his book, The Alchemist. And it's when we love, we always strive to become better than we are. When we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. I'm on a self-improvement kick recently, so that spoke to me. So cool. Then that's the end of that wine. The next one we are pouring is the other skin contact wine we made.
This is 200% skin contact, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, you see that there? He was like raising his glass up because that's like the standard like style. But we're supposed to like not touch the edges with the new safety rules. So I was like dodging him upwards, and he's chasing me up there.
So this, as Jerome said, it's a 200% skin contact wine, which is to say, that first one was whole berries. I mean, harvested grapes, separated the stems, fermented just the berries as whole berries.
And when it
Light
says
sugar.
berries, that means the grapes themselves,
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know. It just means they threw the whole grape in there rather than separating out the skins.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing that I get so used to that we call them berries, which I'm reasonably certain that's not even technically like true botanically or in any sense of the word.
They're a legume.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Right. I was like, yeah.
No.
No, they're not a legume. But it's just something winemakers do. We say that. We say whole berry or like, oh, the berries are a little ripe this year, whatever. Like, I don't know. Great habit we all got into as winemakers. So this was fermented with the original berries of the grape whole, and then I made some other Picpoul Blanc that I pressed off and fermented just the juice, and I took those skins and added it to this ferment. So this has 200% skin contact, both whole berry and crushed skins, which is why this one is so freaking intense and so orange. You got all this golden orange color from those skins extracted into the wine over the course of a very long fermentation.
It almost looks like some kind of hard liquor or like semi-hard liquor, or whatever you call it, like a sherry or a bourbon.
Exactly. And there's lots of reasons for that. So partly that skin contact, but secondarily over the course of aging, because this wine was aged about 18 months, which is not like a white wine. White wines are aged for like a month or two and bottled right away when they're young and fresh. An orange wine like this can be aged longer, and this one in particular was aged super long, like almost 2 years, which is more akin to like a sherry or a whiskey. And you get that oxidative oak contact color. Like, I mean, think about it. You look at a whiskey. Whiskey starts its life totally clear. All of its color comes from that barrel. Similarly with sherry, they're pretty clear and light, and you get that color from the barrel and that little oxygen contact from the air on the top, in the top part of the barrel. So,
but you still get that fruitiness and a little bit of aromatics from the rosé being mixed in with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you get that. The base Picpoul brings in a lot of like peach, like peach and apricot and tropical fruit notes and floral notes, but they're more dried. When they were young, when the wine was young, it was more fresh fruits, and over time it turned into this dried fruit, dried floral notes. Yeah, and blending a little bit of rosé into this small production version brought in a little bit of this bright fruit to it. A little bit of this like pink red fruit.
Because it's no surprise, I like both of the ones it's made from. The rosé, it's easy drinking and like comfortable, and the Orangose is just like such a deep, rich, kind of complex white. When they're blended together, makes an awesome blend as well.
Yeah.
Not one that you normally like, like orange itself is kind of rare, but an orange blended with a rosé, I've never even heard of such a thing.
It's one of these things that that skin contact Picpoul Blanc that I made, the original one, which is now also sold out. When I was bottling that right next to the rosé that was one of our really popular wines last vintage that we actually are already on the new vintage. And when I was bottling those together, I went from one to the other, and there was this crossover period where they accidentally mixed, and I ended up with like 70, 80 bottles of this Orangose, which is the orange wine and the rosé blended together. It was like a happy accident. We accidentally did it, ended up with like 6 cases of it, and we're like, this is freaking tasty.
Tell me you have a Bob Ross quote for your pairings at the end.
Happy little...
Yeah, it's a happy we don't make
phase.
Mistakes. It's just happy little accidents.
There we go. That was the quote. That's our quote today. Nailed it. Do you want to do the answer to your trivia question now? We've got a bunch of answers out here.
Yeah, and well, I'm monitoring Facebook here, and we got one guess here that it's truth serum, which that was the intended meaning. A lot of people don't really know that. They hear that phrase in vino veritas, wine is truth, and they think it's like, I don't know, an alcoholic's anthem or something like, yeah, it's all about the wine. But it really was like a sarcastic thing saying, people get drunk, they get stupid, they'll tell you all the shit that they're not intending to say. So good guesses on those. If you guessed that, that is the correct answer.
Yeah. On YouTube, Michael and Monica nailed it. The drunkards one was Monica's answer. That's a good way to describe that answer. Truth serum for drunkards. So that's kind of that wine. My life pairing for this. This is more for the orange wine itself. is being yourself, like letting your freak flag fly. But bringing in that rosé, I guess it's like letting your freak flag fly and then putting a ribbon on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll with that. I was just trying to get creative there. Kind of worked. And then my literary pairing is from Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, and the quote is, "You're mad, bonkers, completely off your head. But I'll tell you a secret: all the best people are." So, yeah. And then food pairings for this wine. That base orange wine was really like a cornbread and honey, shrimp and grits, like nuts. Things with caramely, nutty, creamy components to them were like the real core of the pairing. What do you think on this? Are you,
the first thing that popped into my mind is kind of tie things together that work with these. You've got the rosé, which is light and fresh and aromatic, and it would be a perfect pairing for like watermelon, for example.
Yeah.
And then the orange wine itself, you recommend cornbread and corn nuts or whatever, and I recommend, like shrimp and grits. I could easily see something along those lines, just kind of like do it Southern style, make up some cornbread, fry up or grill up some shrimp, get a little watermelon on the side, and have kind of a little Southern, feast. I think that'd be perfect with this, or even with the others, and then see how they all play off of each other.
I dig it. That would be good. Maybe some like shrimp with lime influence too. Have a little bit of that crispness, because I think this wine, it goes really well with seafood and shrimp in particular, with their like richer, creamier seafood influence, but then also having that like citrusy influence that goes so well with that rosé. So yeah, that's a pretty good one. And let's see. All right, we got all the answers in, and see if there's anything else here on Facebook. Any questions or answers? Kaylee nailing the truth serum one, and skin contact saves lives. It also makes many evenings.
200% skin contact makes memories. Yeah. Actually, I think it's time for another trivia question.
All right. Sweet. You want to do this next one?
Yeah. How fast does a cork exit a champagne bottle? 50 miles per hour? Of course, this is average, it's going to be different each time. 22 meters per second? Or as fast as I can untangle those little wire things and pop open the orange juice? So weigh in with your different answers, and when we get to the next commercial break, we'll let you know.
So 100 miles an hour or 20 meters a second?
50 miles an hour or 22 meters per second.
Okay. I'm like,
different
aspects of measurement. I'm like, I'm not even,
Well, it makes the questions more confusing. I'm trying to like match your level of question intensity.
22 meters
Most people
a
don't
second.
have access to a calculator.
I've shot off some corks before off champagne bottles and like done sabering and stuff. And they do go really fast. 22 meters a second. That's pretty fast though.
Biggest event we ever did was a animal adoption event. And I had one bottle of that in reserve, just keep that at events. Like if somebody's getting married or something like that, I'll like bust it open. And there was like a bachelorette party. The lady was just getting married like the next day. And I was like, oh, let's open it. And it had been sitting in place in the cooler all the time, but just everywhere. And we were all like soaked. And it's like, you want the rest of the bottle? Like,
oh, man.
I think that time is 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, 50 miles an hour in every direction. Yeah, that's the thing with champagne. It can be explosive for sure. So, and by the way, if you guys were curious, I mentioned sabering a bottle of champagne. If you've never sabered a bottle of champagne, there's a really cool trick to it. So this isn't
I just savor a bottle of champagne, and make bad dad jokes.
Options. So if you look on a wine bottle, there's always a seam. It's actually when they're making the glass, it's a mold, and the glass comes together, and that's like the seam line.
Two halves.
Yeah, exactly. And so you find that seam line on the bottle of champagne, and then there's this little neck on the bottle, and the champagne bottle will have this too. So you take that seam line, and you can take anything kind of like sharp and hard, like literally. I mean, it could be like a knife or like a saber, but you can do this with a butter knife, a pocket knife, like whatever. Anything will work pretty much. And you run it along that line, and you kind of get your feel for it, like line it up. It's like a golf swing, like planning it out. And then you just go, you like swing through the end. So you swing to like a full arm extension. and that catches, it hits that lip and shoots it off, and it's a fracture point. It's a natural point of weakness in the assembly of the bottle. So when you do that, it won't work on regular wine because there's no pressure in the bottle in regular wine. But since champagne has pressure in the bottle, that little crack, suddenly all that pressure wants to release, and it shoots out all the glass and the end of the bottle, and now you have a shot off bottle of wine, champagne, ready to drink. Cool trick that's shockingly easy, but if you don't know how to do it right, you can totally have the bottle explode in your hands, and that's not fun.
Right. Or you end up like beheading a bachelorette party rather than lightly spritzing them. Yeah,
Yeah, it could go really badly.
yeah, totally awkward.
And someone else says, shouldn't pop the cork, just a light Kyle. Yeah, Kyle, actually, in sommelier training, I did like WSET Wine Spirits Education Trust. It's like a parallel course to sommelier training. And what they taught us is that when opening a bottle of champagne, if you don't want it to like shoot out, because it's cool to shoot it out, but like if you want to be like at a restaurant as a sommelier, you don't want it to shoot out, so you open it. The term they taught us was you want it to sound like a nun's fart. Weird, but you know, you can just imagine it, right?
But then once they say that, you have to imagine it. And then once you imagine it, you can't unimagine it.
Exactly. That'll stick with you guys now. So nun's fart, bottle of champagne. Cool. Do we have any answers here? All right. We've got some. You got the Facebook one, Kaylee, 50 miles an hour. Monica says 50 miles an hour.
So the answer to this one, those were both correct, but it was actually a trick question. They're all correct answers. 50 miles per hour is 22 meters per second, according to me typing it into Google earlier. And yeah, when I get a bottle, as fast as I can get those little wired things off and get some orange juice, that motherfucker's out.
I love it. Yeah, I actually had, our bottle of champagne was like $48, but I had it as a mimosa a couple times. It was satisfying in the same way as like burning money. It's like, yeah. But okay. All right. So that's our next trivia question. I'm going to throw out one more, and we're going to pour that 05 Primal Syrah.
Oh.
Your third.
I'm going to grab that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I had the same wrong thing.
Yeah, so the 05 Primal Syrah, get that in your glass. That's definitely like a darker, heavier style red wine. And so it's going to be a bit of a shift going from like this quirky, eccentric orange wine to a pretty big, heavy red wine. As you're getting into that, I'm going to ask you guys your next trivia question.
Stall for me. Stall.
Your next trivia question is, how many calories... Sorry, actually, I had to double check my answer. I was like, wait, do I actually know the answer to this? I didn't put the key there, but I do know. Okay. How many calories are in a glass of dry wine? Now, I'm talking here, it actually varies a little bit, but like an average glass of wine of about 13% alcohol. So is it 75?
So does the calorie count, is it affected by the alcohol content?
Well, this is sort of,
is that part of the question?
Part of the answer, yeah. So I'm not going to give too many clues here, but there are definitely various things that influence this.
Maybe we'll hear about it later. I'm curious now.
Maybe. Is it 75 to 100 calories, 100 to 125 calories, 125 to 150 calories, or 150 to 200 calories? So, all right. Think on that. Throw your guesses out. And, and for those of you guys watching in the future, those of us, here in the past talking about this, people can watch this after the fact when it's a recorded video. If you're doing the trivia after the fact recorded and you want to make it, obviously don't cheat and like fast forward. And if you still want to get the prizes, you can just message us later and we'll like scope and put your comments still, and we'll scope when you put them in, and we'll be able to tell whether you cheated or not. So, all right. Anyway, while you guys are thinking about that question and throwing your answers out, this L5 Primal Syrah comes from Amador County grapes from a relatively high elevation vineyard in Amador County on this hilltop peeking up at this mountaintop. Really cool spot, pretty harsh climate. Amador County has a lot of decomposed granite soils that the soil is very sandy and very non-agricultural. You wouldn't grow regular crops there.
But grapes work well in that type of soil, right?
Exactly.
Clay and loam, whatever that is or whatever.
whatever. Yeah, look at
Slate.
you. Yeah,
I heard that word somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. It is, in fact, decomposed granite and clay in a sandy loam mix. So, some soil science there. That's one of the cool things about wine is like...
Yeah, he does soil science. I like memorize catchphrases. I heard some sommelier say sometime or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk to sommeliers about wine.
That's what they do, though, to be fair. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Psalms.
Some are awesome. We love them. But yeah, they're probably as bad as winemakers about like saying crazy, weird, geeky sounding stuff. You're like, wow, he's talked more about the rocks and geology of where the grapes came from than the wine itself. Like, I didn't realize wine had so many rocks influencing their flavor. But it's a big part of it, actually, because grapes express different flavors in environments where they struggle. And that's oftentimes rocky or sandy, harsh environments that don't have a whole lot of soil in a classic sense.
That might actually be really interesting to look at and do, like, like we do looking over the woods and how that matches up with the climates where you would enjoy them or where the food would come from. Like, things that are coastal, pair well with coastal things. See
And then
if they're how that does affect things. I don't know. Maybe that is something
that
you
could
learn
be a
in sommelier
good
school.
future show theme. You definitely see the influence of these soils, and it is something that you talk about in winemaking and sommelier stuff. But so this soil in particular, all right, we got off on a tangent there. This soil in particular is decomposed granite and creates a lot of stresses on the vine that intensifies the flavors of this Syrah grape to make a very densely fruity wine that when it was young, it was super, super bright blackberry and plum. But with time, you really see the other complexities from this vineyard coming into play, which is more like black pepper spice, a almost gamey, like leather tobacco spice. And, people even say like meatiness. I had Chef Chris Barnum say this one almost had like a sanguine, which basically means bloody smell to it.
I can kind of see that. And it's like, it goes with a lot of those things where you do more smell that it was alive. It's not really as much like a pairing for a pork or as much as it is for like boar or for steak as much as it is grass-fed steak or lamb, or mushrooms,
Totally.
really pair with a lot of those things with a lot of umami, really like earthy, dark, deep forest stuff.
I think the umami comment's perfect. Like, mushrooms, truffles, like that umami influence, anything of that rich umami, because this wine has all these umami rich flavors.
And just for those of you who don't know, because I do the same thing with food that he does with wine, umami it's sometimes known as like the the fifth flavor, sixth flavor, where it's in addition to like your sweet, salty, sour, bitter, spicy, and then other things like fatty, I would guess, sour. But umami is just kind of that funkiness and full, deep flavor you get from mushrooms or funky cheeses or gamey meats. Fish sauce, anything that's got like some funk and heavy flavor to it. Toasted seaweed. Mm-hmm. Those are all very umami flavors. So that's what I was referencing there with it.
Yeah. So, okay. Before I go into my other pairings, I'm going to announce the answer to this is in most wines. And again, this actually varies pretty heavily depending on alcohol level. But in most dry wines, you're going to be at about 100 to 125 calories. You can actually get in some wines, like really low alcohol wines, mostly light whites and rosés that are, again, not sweet but dry. You can get under 100, and in heavier, more alcoholic red wines, especially if they're a little off dry, you can get into the 125 to 150 range. But for the most part, they're 100 to 125. And this is actually a common misperception. A lot of people think wine is higher in calories. So they're like, oh gosh, I'm going to go drink like hard seltzer because it's low calorie. But like if you have if you don't have sugar in wine and it's not sweet wine, which most wines aren't sweet, unless you can taste sweetness on it, it's not sweet. So most wines, all of our wines are zero sugar. The source of your calories is basically the alcohol content. So like you can't cheat the system. You can't like get drunk without calories by drinking hard seltzer. Like you're going to get drunk in proportion to alcohol, which is exactly what's giving you the calories. So a dry red wine is
no cheating that number. It's they're directly equivalent.
It's the alcohol.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So it's the things that get you the calories are going to be basically sugar and carbohydrate sources. wine doesn't have carbohydrates. It's just it's alcohol and sugar and acids and stuff. So acids don't have calories. It's just the alcohol content in a dry wine, and then any sugar you may have in sweet wines. Beer and cocktails tend to be really high calories, and that's where you really are getting like messed up on calorie stuff. If you're watching that with your alcohol, is cocktails tend to have like sweet mixers and juices and stuff.
And the beer's got like the gluten and the hops and
Exactly.
like things contributing in there.
So you have all the grain sources that create the alcohol in beer. Some of it converts to fermentable sugars, but some stays as unfermentable sugars or carbohydrates that have high calorie content. It's why people used to drink beer as like a meal. It actually has like carbs and sugar, whereas wine is like a little more straightforward, like alcohol, flavor, and
it's
acids.
also a more complex carbohydrate, so it's going to take more energy to burn it up, right? So it's got to convert it. The beer, than the wine or the alcohol.
Yeah, so the beer is going to have like a lot of complex carbohydrates and sugars, whereas a dry wine has none. It's just the alcohol and yeah. So anyway, there we go. That's the answer to that one.
We both nerded out on that one. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Well, should we jump into the pairings and stuff?
Yeah. So the life pairing for this one is a sexy night out with your girl or guy or both. I think this wine is sexy enough for all of that.
Sexy enough for everybody, people. Send them slide in on those DMs. I think that's how they say it these days.
The kids. That's what the kids are saying.
The parlance of our times,
yeah.
dude.
So then the music pairing is Killing Me Softly by the Fugees. And that's Lauryn Hill singing. Beautiful, sexy song. Also, another great date night one. And and then the literary pairing is to not be so sexy anymore, just a little more goofy. W.C. Fields, I cook with wine. Sometimes I even add it to the food. Just my bad dad joke of the night. So those are my pairings. We talked about food pairings and all my quirky pairings. A little bit about that wine, and I guess I'll give you guys the answer to this trivia question before we move into the next. Oh wait, I just gave you the answer. Now it's ready for your trivia question.
Aha!
Ah!
This is so unpredictable. But so this one is similar to kind of what he was doing earlier with his question, but it's which of these measures of wine is the largest? A Nebuchadnezzar, a barrel, or a buttload? We'll get back to that later. It's an official wine measurement.
I love that those things are actually wine measurements.
Yeah, they have a lot of like those words. You can tell it's like a male-oriented company. Like, well, just call it the bunghole. And this one's, like...
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the, like, all the different sizes of bottles, because there's like, the standard wine bottle, and then there's like a double size, they call a magnum. And then after that, all of the ones for like 3 liters and 6 liters and 12-liter bottles, which do exist, and they're really expensive often.
Yeah, there's like a dozen different options going up to like almost like man size. It's like 7-year-old child size, and they're all actual things out there, and they're all named after biblical characters.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe they're all biblical references. Like, weird names. So let's see. We just finished the Syrah. I suppose we might as well pour this next wine here. Our fourth wine of the evening is our L7 Delirium Cabernet Sauvignon. This one...
You have a very ironically, I poured you a lot because you're not drinking, lineup for, we're in quarantine times and you can't touch each other and you can't get out. And we've got Skin Contact, The Lover, Primal, Delirium, and Wanderlust. These are very like today's climate topical wine names, like
things we can't do right now is the theme of these wines.
Yeah, this is our today's political climate wine lineup theme.
Yeah, it's unintentional consequences. The things I love are all things we can't do right now. Okay, this fourth wine, Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is naturally prone towards kind of intense, dark flavors. And because it's already prone towards that, especially on like this herbaceous, spicy side of the spectrum, I wanted to enhance that. So these grapes come to the Sierra Nevada foothills again. I source most of my red grapes in the foothills. And it was a lower elevation vineyard and therefore a little warmer. Therefore, it produced some pretty ripe grapes. So I think the front of this, you get like a lot of ripe fruit. But then I fermented some of this on the stems, which is a technique you normally only use on lighter reds to give them some body. But rather than trying to make Cabernet Sauvignon something that's not like this lighter wine, I just let it be heavy. I gave it some stems and enhanced the heaviness and the herbaceousness. And then I aged it in both oak, which, oak gives some nice vanilla, coconut, mocha, coffee notes. I also aged it on some maple and hickory, which gave it some richness, some maple molasses notes, some hickory spice notes. And lastly, on some other crazy woods. These ones were cedar and cypress, which brought in really woodsy, herbaceous, green, spicy, forest floor kind of notes. So I don't know if you guys get that on this, because at front you just get like the fruit and the mocha and kind of like a chocolatey note. And I think that's what most people first catch. But there's also this dryness and this greenness to it that I really like.
Yeah, as do I. And it's the one, like I've described it before on this show as kind of reminding me of that, like that aromatic and taste you get with a tomato fresh off the vine with the vine still attached. Yeah. You get that fruitiness and, just like full, smooth flavor, but, and then you've got that earthiness, that greenness kind of coming through as well, but more in the background. You're eating the fruit and you're just, smelling the stems and the leaves.
Yeah, so it's like the presence of that green character. So it's like mostly fruit, but you get that other green, fresh from the soil kind of influence. So yeah, I think that really comes through on this wine. I enhanced it with all those influences. Rather than the kind of dumbing Cabernet Sauvignon down, which a lot of people do, it's enhancing the Cabernet Sauvignon character and intensifying it. So then, this being so deep down that road, I think kind of obvious pairings for this. Barbecue food could work, steak and mushrooms. It's hard to go wrong with red wine and barbecue, but more specifically, I think stuffed bell peppers and fajitas are particularly good pairings for this because it does have that bell pepper green character, but like a meatiness to it. So those play off those two characteristics pretty well.
Yeah, last time I made some stuffed little mini red bell peppers with soy chorizo and some corn and onions in it. And that was a fantastic pairing with this.
Yeah. This one's really aging well. When this was younger, the thing is, if you've ever been like to a wine shop or to a winery or a restaurant or whatever, and the sommelier or the winemaker or someone says like, oh, this wine's an excellent vintage, but it needs 10 years of aging. And you're like, well, I'll give it about 10 hours of aging at most. Like, I'm going to go home and drink this thing. But the reason they're telling you that, it doesn't actually mean it needs it. It means that the wine is kind of harsh right now. And all the harsh characteristics in wine tend to mellow out with time. So alcohol and acidity to some degree.
But that's largely, an effect of like them kind of slowing down the process with the sulfites. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like,
sorry,
at its core, no, it's a good point. It's a good follow-up question. But to get the first point out, it's like the tannins, which are what make red wine heavy and kind of dry and bitter. So if you taste a red wine, it's like, whoa, it's kind of dry and bitter and heavy. Those soften with time in wine. So that's where they go, ooh, it's kind of harsh and bitter. That needs 10 years. Now, if you like harsh and bitter, if you like heavier wines, darker wines, and you like, IPAs and stuff that are just like drier and more intense, you'll probably like that wine young, not aged. But yeah, to his point, the aging of wine goes very slowly in wine made in a mainstream style where sulfite is added. It's a preservative and it slows the aging process. So then those wines take 10 years to soften. With sulfite-free winemaking like we do, the aging process goes faster, so wines don't take so long to age. They taste perfect at a younger age. And since most wine is consumed in the first 5 years after bottling anyway, it's perfect. Actually, natural wine is like custom made for the modern world where people aren't aging wine for 20 years. No one has a massive cellar in their basement and aging. I mean, people do. Some of you guys might, but relatively few people are aging their wines for 20 years now. Natural wine, sulfite-free wine, just ages at a pace that's more on board with, I think, like modern drinking habits.
Yeah, and sorry, I learned that a few days ago. So when I heard him talking about that, it like sparked the memory, and I was making connections. Oh, that's that thing you were telling me about.
It's really interesting like twist because people are worried that sulfite-free natural wine won't age well. It's like actually it ages great, it just ages faster.
Right.
As long as you're making it clean, it's not spoiling on you. It just ages at a rate more aligned with how people drink. Okay, we got some answers. Kaylee Polly says buttload. Josh Thomas says bungload. Good answer. If you guys don't know, this is called the staves of the barrel. This is the head of the barrel, and the hole through which we pump in the juice is called the bunghole.
And that's what I was referencing
That's
there.
the bung.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of the odd words in the wine industry, a lot of definitely like sexual innuendo seeming words,
Or just like potty mouth stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole point of this question here. Like, again, that's when I learned recently that buttload was actually an official wine metric. You measure the number of buttloads of wine you have. Like, I guess that's where the phrase came from. But before I give the answer, I want to acknowledge Michael Wyatt says, I think I can tell who is not using a dump bucket tonight. That is true. I'm already like my questions are a lot goofier, but words are hard sometimes. But so the answer to the question is a buttload. A Nebuchadnezzar is a pretty large amount. It's 20 typical bottles worth. It's one of those big, giant, child-sized bottles. A barrel is obviously a lot bigger than that, but a buttload is a little over 2 full barrels. So that is the largest amount, is the buttload. And sorry, I just like saying buttload over and over. Poop jokes are not my favorite type of joke, but they're like a solid number 2. Sorry, I'll try to.
The funny thing is, I'm spitting my wine, but this is actually my 4th wine tasting today. That I've done 3 private wine tastings for corporate groups earlier today, and even though I'm spitting everything on those, I'm tasting through a bunch of wine, and then I also have been blending wine today and filtering it. So even though I haven't drank any wine today, I swear I'm getting pretty tipsy right now. So
You're like contact drunk.
Yeah, that's a good term for it. Contact drunk right now. Funny thing is, I'm on a fast right now too, so I'm on a totally empty stomach, so it doesn't really take much.
Yeah, and I had like a homemade chili with some, spiral baked ham and stuff. So it's like mine is like.
Why are you trying to torture me, bro? That's so good.
You can't eat beans, right? Oh, are you in the fast stage now?
I'm in my 2nd day of juice fasting.
He extended from like just generally healthy eating to like vegetarian to vegan to raw to fasting over the course of a month to just do a cleanse. But I haven't adjusted my conversation much, so I've been like teasing him more and more. Right. Not because I'm saying anything different, but because like the gap is widening.
It's been tough. I've been talking about food pairings with people all day, and it is hard on a fast. Don't ever fast, people. I'm also giving up drinking alcohol for the month. Spitting's okay, but all right. People are saying this is awesome. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I was telling the corporate tastings earlier that if they want to check out our public tastings on Facebook and YouTube, it's very similar to our very nice corporate tastings I do that are a little more professional. Primary difference is that we just kind of get drunk on air and we're a lot goofier. So I think that's coming true tonight very effectively. So this 5th wine, you guys can go ahead and pour in your glass, is our L8 Wanderlust Red Blend. It's our most popular wine overall, and it's just a beautifully complex and balanced wine that also has a ton of intensity. So it's intense but balanced. And I think that comes partly from the blend components, but also from just the fact that blends, especially non-vintage blends, tend to be softened by the blending process. It brings together all the complexities, but also kind of softens the sharp edges. So it's a more round wine. Before I get into that, though, let's ask my next question.
Did you really go over pairings on this? Okay.
Oh, on the Syrah we did. We just didn't. I'm just starting the red blend. So yeah. So the 3rd trivia question I'm going to ask here is, what are the species of grapevine used for winemaking, and where did it originate? So, There you go. What are the species? What is the species of grapevine used for winemaking? That's actually a really hard one. But the real question, I guess, the one that's actually answerable if you don't know a ton about wine, is
Kevin's
where-
is like, say something in Latin. My quiz question is buttload. Ha ha ha, buttload.
Yeah, this is why when I asked all the questions last time, like no one got any right. So we decided to make Jerome have be the bulk of the questions, like normal people wine questions. So okay, the main question is, where did the grapevine used for winemaking, most wine, come from originally? You can name a country or a region of the world. So, yeah, mull over that for a moment. And this wine, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Barbera, 25% Zinfandel. The Barbera and Zinfandel are like the red grapes of the foothills. They were brought here by Italian immigrants during the gold rush. They took cuttings from the homeland, came over here for the gold rush, and planted them so they could have some wine while they were mining for gold or whatever, I suppose. You don't have to be sober mining for gold, so might as well bring some grapevines. And so we have these Italian grapes in the foothills here, where all the gold mining happened, that are now our kind of famous core grapes, Barbera and Zinfandel. And then Cabernet Sauvignon is planted broadly just because it's the most popular red wine grape in the world. And it's a nice backbone of a blend. It's the backbone of the Great Bordeaux blend. So it really provides that nice tannic strength. And, as you saw in the Cabernet Sauvignon, and then the Barbera brings in more fresh fruit and acidity, and Zinfandel more of a jammy, baked fruit kind of characteristic.
So it helps balance it out.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
those different flavor profiles or fruitiness and
Yeah.
or like smoothness and fruitiness.
Exactly. So you have that flavor balance between the different grape varieties that kind of like each add something to the mix, but balance it out. Because I think that's one of the cool things about winemaking, especially blending. It's kind of like cooking. Like in cooking, you'd balance like your acidity and your spiciness and your sweetness and these different components, and you might like balance the different ingredients to create like a complexity of a dish, right?
Right. You add something fatty to something, Yeah.
Exactly. So then in wine, you do the same thing by blending together things that maybe one's really acidic, but it doesn't have enough like backbone of alcohol and tannins. So that's where the Cabernet Sauvignon comes in, and the Zinfandel brings in like a sweet fruit. So you get that in this wine, and the fruit was all really ripe. So you get definitely a ripe, jammy, almost port-like flavor. And then I aged this on cherry, maple, and hickory, which give some nice spicy components and a little bit of that maple molasses richness. And then a little bit of charred whiskey style oak that brings in some of that bourbon smoking note. That I don't know if you guys get that on that. Feel free to comment if you get that note on this. So you get this like fruit but toasty jamminess, which I think is a really cool lead into one of your pairings for this that you always suggest is like toast with cheese and jam. When I was reading that, I was like, oh, cool. That so perfectly plays off like the flavors in this wine.
Yeah, when you started that, I was like, what is he? I don't remember a toast pairing with this, but I do now. And I think I even recommended it being one of those, you get those nice, like fruit plus pepper jellies, habanero apricot or, like strawberry jalapeno, like just, chili pepper with the sweetness, and then do that on there with some cheese on the bread. That would be fantastic. I'm glad past me thought of that and sent me that message. I'm gonna give that a try.
When past you as being clever. Hey, Jim Kozavoski says, hey Jerome, and chorizo. This was in the past, so I actually don't know what he's referring to with chorizo. But
I was talking about putting like the soy chorizo in the stuffed bell pepper.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't ever had soy chorizo, it's so good, and it's like that seasoning just makes it so like even if you are a meat eater and you're not vegan, it's like so delicious as it is. And hey, Taban, how's it going?
Where's my cardboard inserts, bro? You totally said, "Oh, I'm gonna bring those back," and then like it didn't. Still glad you joined us, but like, where's my $2?
Yeah, Taban, a good friend.
Thank
of
you
ours.
for all the help, though.
Funny guy, and volunteered to come help with some of the packaging stuff. We had our biggest week between all these corporate orders and this public tasting. We probably shipped out about 5 to 10 times more wine than most of the previous weeks leading up to that. So it was just like a massive increase in orders. So we got all of our friends came out and helped us get through a crazy weekend. So thank you to Pon and everyone else who came up and helped, JB and all sorts of folks. And Laura Cather's hanging out tonight too, digging bubbles, and she nailed it on the caloric guess. Awesome. And drunk people tell the truth. Okay, Laura, you're killing it. Sorry I didn't see your answers earlier. You pretty much are getting all of them correct. So yeah,
He had you on read. Sorry, I've been learning new lingo.
I don't know any of these references. I'm so old. Okay, the species of grapevine is called Vitis vinifera that wine grapes are made from, and it originates from Europe. That's a really general answer. They think where it originally originated from is somewhere around the Fertile Crescent / Georgia, the country of Georgia, kind of that region of the world. But probably the best guess is Georgia. They're not 100% sure. But it is the European grapevine, is kind of how it's referred to. And there's that, it may have originated there, but then it kind of traveled through Europe, and you see it, there's your French grapevines, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, etc. You have your Italian ones, Sangiovese, Barbera. You have your, French, or your Spanish ones, Tempranillo. So you have all these ones throughout Europe. All of them are the same species of grape. Whereas the American grapes, the muscadine grapes, and just the ones you see like growing down by the river or whatever, the ones that make like our Welch's grape juice and stuff, Concord grapes, these are American grapevines of different species. We actually have a few of them, and they just don't make very good wine. There's a variety of reasons. Apparently there's a molecule in most of these American grapevine species, which are related species. They all kind of inbreed. And they say that the aroma molecule in it is the same aroma molecule that is put out by as a pheromone by the scent glands of a fox's anus.
Wow.
Weird wine fact. The American grapevine. Yeah. So
we've had an odd sort of theme to our sides tonight.
A poop jokey. But this is like, I'm not making this up. We learned this in school, and it's crazy and weird. And you don't really notice, like, you're not drinking Welch's. You're like, fox's anus. It tastes delicious.
If you do, you generally like pour it out. I think.
One would think, unless you never know. But it apparently isn't very noticeable in the juice form. But when you ferment it, it really comes out. So then you have like a really funky flavor in wine made from American wine grapes. So you don't really see this very often. If you do see wine made from like American wine grapes, usually they're hybrids of the American grapevine species and the French ones. So that crossbreeding tends to kind of diminish that flavor. So you have some kind of good ones, like Norton is grown across the U.S. a lot. It's apparently a really nice red wine. But yeah, those are like kind of from the American grapevine.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, do you have your last question? Last trivia question of the night will be from Jerome's list, so hopefully a little easier.
Yeah. What does it mean when people say that wine has good legs? Does it mean that the wine will be able to go further because it has a stronger alcohol content? Does it mean that the wine clings to the side of the glass because of the viscosity level and the strength of the alcohol? Or does it mean that the wine is appealing enough that you've got to kind of look it up and down and give it those elevator eyes, like, you really just good quality wine? But let us know. My guess is the third one, but we'll see.
I love that Kaylee Polly on Facebook is totally on our level. I won't even reread her joke. I'll let it stand for what it is. But yeah, definitely on our level tonight with a nice joke.
I don't think it was a joke, by the way. If you look real close, she says, want to know what's better than soy chorizo? Chorizo. But then after that, she doesn't have a laughing face. She's got the bawling face. I think that's like a grievance or like just a sad comment. I can understand, like, if I order bacon and somebody brings me like soy bacon or something, like it's not the same.
It's true.
Understood.
I was actually referring to her next comment, the Uranus joke.
I hadn't noticed that yet.
That's a good one. Anyway, okay, so this wine, Wanderlust, being wine named after the travel bug, the Wanderlust. My life bearings for this being adventurous, traveling, camping under the stars with your lover, that sort of adventurous stuff. And then the music pairing is right along those lines, and it's from Manu Chao's song "Me Gustas Tu." It's that's just this song that throughout the 2000s and like early 2010s, where it was really like the song you'd hear if you were traveling the world. If you were in some foreign hostel or on the road somewhere, people were playing that song all the time. They hit for like 10 years. And it's this song that this singer, he sings in like 5 different languages. He's lived in 6 countries. He's an international citizen. And if you haven't heard this song, it's a super fun song. Check it out. And then the literary pairing is from Hippocrates. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. I think in these times, eating and drinking well is especially important. So, yeah, eat well, drink well. You know, our wine, natural wine, sulfite-free and vegan, is about as healthy as you can be while still getting drunk. So, yeah, I'd like to do our part to contribute to good health.
Yeah, it seems like a good segue back to me, I guess, tonight. So I'll go ahead with the answer to my survey question, or my question. Wine having good legs is how well it kind of hangs up on the side of the wine.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, that's the visible sign of it, but really you're looking for something with a high viscosity level, a high alcohol level.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those sommelier tricks, like swirling it, you know, and smelling in to kind of like detect the different things that you could then deductively reason out what the wine is. So people are able to break down different aspects of it by that. And that's what the good legs are, is how well it hangs on the side.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought it was just people trying to show how cool they are and how like close to the top they could get without spilling. But apparently it's, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
For
does
no
like look
reason.
cool, right? You're like swirling it and you like hold it up and look at it like you're being really thoughtful. Yeah, it seems to be largely an indicator of viscosity and alcohol, but there's a lot of components interacting there, so it's like a fun thing to evaluate.
Right, but yeah, that's the answer to the question. There's no vague answers.
There's
number
an answer.
B. Yeah.
B. So, all right. And a lot of you guys got a lot of these right. I think we balanced the difficulty of the questions a lot better than last time. Yeah, we've got some final comments here. Can we send the list of the song pairings? Someone really liked the elevator. Oh, Monica really liked the elevator's eyes answer. You got the right
It's
correct
like, bing, bing. All right. No, yeah.
Good
So we
night.
got
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we do my Jerome solo at the end of the show rather than the beginning, but sorry, dad jokes on full effect today.
Drum
But let me show
solo.
you the
Ooh.
last thing we got going on.
Yeah,
here.
we're gonna bring this camera around here, and yeah, I think it's mostly just because we get drunk and forget to do it earlier. But Jerome is gonna tell you guys a little bit about our subscription box options and our wine tasting kits for those of you who are watching and don't know about these things. This is our version of a wine club and our version of a tasting room, since we're fully
Hey, this is
digital.
my spot.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
So what you see here is exactly what he was saying here. Here are different kit options, which I had 100% prepared before showtime. Is you've got basically 4 different options. Your 50 milliliter kit, which is half or a third of a glass per each. So you end up drinking a quarter of a bottle. It's a nice way to do your tasting. This is 100 milliliters, which is about 2/3 of a glass each, and you drink about 2/3 of a bottle. That's a nice single serving portion. Here you got 2 kits plus 1 bottle. We call it, you know, like the couples pack, your date night pack. You know, it's good for 2 people trying this. And then you got a featured bottle that you can enjoy if you need more than your tasters. And the best deal for you by far, and the best for us, is the 5 bottle kit. You get a great discount. It's cheaper than just buying the bottles of wine. So if you're going to drink them, this is a smart way for you to do it, and it really helps out a small business. The other thing we got going on here is what goes along with our subscription packages. What we do is monthly packages that include 1 to 3 bottles of wine, and we've got all sorts of different offerings that you can check out. And each month you get something cool, like a fairy bottle light or some local homemade organic hot sauce, you know, some rosemary charcoal soap or adult coloring books, resin necklace, candles, We got various others in the works and other ones we've given out before. So again, it's another way to give back. You're supporting local artists, local entrepreneurs, and people that right now are starving because everything is closed. How do you get somebody in to check out your stuff right now? So you're giving back to the community. You're getting cool, useful stuff for yourself, and you're helping support us so that we can keep rolling out good wines and putting them in adorable little bottles for you to enjoy at home virtually. So,
Indeed.
flip you back around, Kevin, for the outro. Oh, he was not expecting that.
Hey! All right, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. We have some cool stuff coming up. We have the new vintage release next week. So that'll be next Friday. And then the Saturday after that, we have our nonprofit special for the Sacramento SPCA. We're going to have some cute doggy pairings. Don't worry, we're not cooking them. No dogs will be harmed in the filming of that episode. It's just going to be cute doggies thematically paired with the wines. And fundraiser for the SPCA. We're matching donations if you guys just straight donate while ordering the wine kits. But if you order the wine kits, $5 from every kit, also going to the SPCA. So awesome fundraiser. Scope that out. And then we're going to finish our month of August with a fundraiser that's for the Sacramento Children's Receiving Home. We're working with Shakira's Holiday Events, does a lot of work with the Children's Receiving Home, as well as sugar-coated cupcakes, a local cupcakery, mobile cupcake truck based out of Elk Grove here locally. And they have some really cool, like, savory cupcakes as well, like bacon maple and waffle chicken and a rosé wine cupcake and a sangria cupcake that we're going to do some really cool cupcake and wine pairings. That is a little more focused on local folks because cupcakes are really hard to ship effectively. So unfortunately, that's definitely something that people a little more local will be checking out. But scope that out in late August. And then we're taking a little bit of a break, actually, because harvest is hitting and I'm going to be doing a lot of harvest time. So check out the upcoming videos because we won't be doing it for a little while through September much.
Yeah, I was just going to say what you were saying there, I think really tied into the last couple of things as well. We're a small business. We're community oriented. We give back and love the fact that you guys help us to do that. We don't have the highest profit margin of the way a lot of wineries do, where they're priced premium for what they provide. The business model here is about making sure we give back to the community, make sure we give back to the people, make sure that we support artists, both local and elsewhere, and appreciate, getting the opportunity to work with you guys to do that. So thanks for, the patronage, and it's really helping make a change out there in the world.
Yeah. Thank you all. See you next time.
That guy, started a little more like jokey there at the end, and then he got sort of like serious and pragmatic, but I think that still came out pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It's kind of hot here.